Real Stories Tapes True Crime is your new true crime podcast fix. In our first season, we'll explore suspicious deaths at a California hospital and a skydiver landing dead on a suburban driveway with a bag containing guns, drugs, and night vision goggles. To join our investigation, search and subscribe to Real Stories Tapes True Crime on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcasts.
This is Matthew Alford, a university lecturer in media and film. He wrote academic articles and did TV interviews, talking about how the government meddles in the production of Hollywood films. Apparently, organisations like the FBI, the US military, the CIA, and even the White House offer to assist in the production of Hollywood movies and TV shows. And in return, they get to make changes to basically make sure they look like the good guys. It's pretty sinister to think that entertainment we watch has been deliberately tampered with to shape our thoughts and the things we believe in. And Matt believed that this was only the tip of the iceberg. So he planned his own investigation, and he wanted someone with a camera to document his findings. And he found me. I'm the guy narrating this film, a corporate filmmaker who made promotional films for businesses. Matt told me he'd found a mystery about a dead screenwriter, and he planned to uncover a big secret about his death. Then he said, would I be interested in making a film about his investigation? And I replied, yes.
Let's go here. This is some of the documentation that I've collected about this guy, Gary DeVore, who was a Hollywood screenwriter. He was behind a lot of big films. Time Cop, Sudden Death, Raw Deal, Dogs of War, Backroads. Gary's the beardy guy here, talking here to Arnold Schwarzenegger on the set of Raw Deal. Here he is working with Kurt Russell. This is Gary with his wife, Wendy DeVore. If it's to do with Gary DeVore, I've got it. What you haven't seen is the rest of it. Do you want to fancy going through that?
What do you mean?
Well, have a look up in my shed in the back.
I think a normal person might have said, why is this guy staying up late every night, talking to strangers about an old murder case? He must be a nutter. Well, I didn't think that. I thought, wow, this guy won't stop until he solves this mystery, and I want to be there when he does.
The search is on tonight for a local screenwriter who never arrived back home from an out-of-town trip.
The Highway Patrol and the LA County Sheriff's Department have both been on the lookout for any sign of DeVore's car, and so far they tell us they have nothing to report.
So Gary DeVore was driving home through the desert, and he disappeared. There was a huge search and a reward put out for information.
$100,000 reward we are offering. You might think someone would be motivated to come forward. But zero. No leads, nothing.
It's like Gary DeVore simply vanished into thin air.
1 year ago today, Gary DeVore disappeared, and the mystery of the missing writer remains.
We looked at every lead that came in, and we're confident that we've done everything we can to this point.
Still, police have few clues and no suspects.
He was missing for 374 days before there was a big discovery.
There has been a major break in the year-long mystery of missing Hollywood screenwriter Gary DeVore.
They found him beneath 15 feet of muddy water at the bottom of the California aqueduct.
DeVore lost control while on the 14 freeway and apparently flipped over the guardrail, landing in the aqueduct below.
The police concluded that he died in a car accident, but Gary's wife refused to believe this.
DeVore's widow is making the TV talk show rounds, calling the death suspicious.
In my own mind, feel that there is a crime here. I do not feel that my husband drove off of this bridge.
This is the official report that explains the only way that Gary could have died.
I will illustrate this as best I can. He's driving down this road. He gets past the aqueduct, which is here. He decides to do a U-turn and drive up against oncoming traffic. In doing so, he manages to find the only gap in the guardrail, which is about 17 foot wide, and he plummets into the aqueduct.
No one saw it, no witnesses. And when his car was found, why was his laptop missing?
I'm super skeptical of these kinds of things, and it sounded like the kind of weird conspiracy that you'd read about on the internet and then forget about 2 minutes later. But Matt wasn't forgetting about it, and he was a proper, credible university professor. So I thought, there must be a chance that he might actually get an answer. I mean, he was relentless.
We've got robbers going around there, right? You're a bit worried about me.
Hello, come in. Good to see you. You too.
Matt, who is Robbie?
Robbie is Robbie Graham. He's a PhD candidate at the University of Bristol. But Robbie worked with me on when we first did all the stuff to do with Gary DeVore. Me and Robbie were talking on a daily basis about it for several months. We found out all the sort of initial stuff about the whole case.
Yeah, we did. Matt and I started looking at it in 2008, Gary DeVore case. And then we wrote an article on it, got a bit of that stuff in The Guardian. And then as time went on, I just, especially in the last few months, I think I've just started to feel a little bit uneasy about the case. You know, of course, you've received an informal or semi-formal warning from a CIA and DoD contractor who said to you, back off the CIA, you're going too far with this now. These people can and will ruin your life and come knocking on mine and your doors. I think that's a pretty sobering thought.
Matt had got a lot of his information from Gary's publicist, Michael Sands, the guy in the TV interviews. He was extremely helpful. The more questions Matt asked, the more material Michael would send him. He also gave Matt the contact details for Wendy, Gary DeVore's widow, who lived in Los Angeles. And she said Gary had been working on a film script that disappeared the day he went missing. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking about whether I can get an answer or not, just in the UK. I've never actually met anyone in the flesh before who actually knew Gary. So we are going to go and see John Irvin, who's a Hollywood film director, but also, rather happily, lives in England.
Hello.
Hi John, it's Matthew Alford. Nice to meet you.
John was really good friends with Gary, and they'd had lunch together a few weeks before Gary disappeared.
What would you say his mental state was like?
He was troubled. Something was bothering him. He was, he wasn't really in the conversation. He was having trouble with the script he was writing, which he talked about more about not the script, but about a government very, very sensitive, inconvenient truth. He was speaking more as a journalist than he was as a screenwriter. He was talking as an investigator. What did you find? What could you have found?
I'm just going to pull over in a second and show you something. So this is called Sham Castle. It's a folly, a kind of building called a folly, which means that it's like a castle, but there's no substance to it. You go around the sides or the back, nothing, it's just an empty field. This represents to me the institutions that rule us in the West and the convenient stories they put out, like the accident theory for Gary DeVore. If we can prove that the government has assassinated a Hollywood screenwriter purely for the reasons of censorship, to prevent something from getting out, an important government secret, then that would be huge.
I'd say he was definitely obsessed with the case. And under stress, juggling children and university, and there were some marriage issues. But there was something alluring about the Gary DeVore mystery.
Yeah, we fly tomorrow night. So yeah, a bit nervous really.
There was no plan, there was no backup, you know, in case we got into trouble. Matt talked about all these people we were going to meet, some of which didn't want to appear on camera, which immediately makes you feel as though, what the hell are they going to say? So it wasn't until really when I was on the plane, sat there, looking out the window, thinking, I've got no idea what to expect here. What the hell have I got myself into?
Just trying to find Wendy's place where we're staying for the next few days. Must be one of these. Is it? Oh, hello. Nice to see you.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Come on in.
Fine, well. Let me just go, I'll get my bag out here.
Bag. Here,
Very kind.
I have it. It's nothing compared to the weight of mine.
Wendy is brilliant. She's just as caring as I expected her to be, and she's amusing as well.
Hello, put this on your fucking head or you're gonna turn into a radish.
And I feel like she's a kind of mother figure, but in a very cool way. And I promised her that I won't leave LA until I've got an answer.
Wendy was able to introduce Matt to people he couldn't reach in England. But only a handful of them would appear on camera, including Mike Dunn, a TV producer who made a film about Gary's story, and actress Claudia Christian, who had been married to Gary for 3 years.
Gary was a hothead politically, and he certainly had his opinions. I think he thought that everything was a giant chess play by, the higher-ups politically, that everyone was a scumbag to him. Every president was a liar and every politician was an idiot. He was also kind of obsessed with he had buddies with the CIA, and he was obsessed with the whole special access.
Gary's writing a screenplay that involved the government. Did he get information from sources, within the government, and maybe somebody slipped him information he shouldn't have had, and that's when he died. Writing and researching that particular story.
When I first moved in with Gary, he said to me, "Don't be alarmed if you get a call from a person from a government agency. Just take their name down and their number and don't be worried about it." In the first 4 years, there were 2 calls. And then, not too long before he actually disappeared, there were several from the CIA at Langley. Gary was writing about CIA activity, US government activity, and he was taking a trip so that he could polish the script and then he had an appointment to come back and turn it in. The last time I spoke to him was at about 1:15 in the morning. I said, "I'll wait up for you," and he said, "No, don't do that," which was really strange. And I said, "Gary, are you all right?" And he said, "I am pumping pure adrenaline here." And I said, "What, are you okay?" And he said, "I'll see you later." I never heard from him again.
Did you know that Wendy was up all night trying to get hold of someone for us?
Yeah, Frank Ford. Really important. I've got a picture of him here. This is Frank with George Bush Sr. He worked as a national security advisor, and he looked into the case when Gary disappeared. And he said that he'll meet today with us at 2 o'clock.
Wendy was saying last night, Will, that Frank's putting in so much effort to come here when he's extremely ill that
wouldn't do it.
Maybe he's coming to say something more than he said before. This is the part of a movie when someone usually gets killed. Can you put your camera away? Can you tell us a bit about this, how sensitive your roles have been and your kind of classification?
Well, I handle briefings for government officials, and I have the highest level of security clearance that a person can obtain within government. There isn't a higher one. I can't remember the exact number, but I think about 1,000 people have the same clearance. It's above top secret.
I understand that you called the CIA. You spoke to a man.
I called him at the agency and we chatted about Gary's disappearance. And there was nothing that he indicated that he could do to be helpful or indicated he would want to. It was Gary's gone and that's all there is to it, and I'm sorry about it. It was a strange conversation that I had. I think the most strange thing about it was he told me to go look at a website, and I went to it. It was all in pornography. I mean, everything in the entire world was in there. I mean, very strange.
Was there actually child pornography accessible?
I don't recall specifically. It seems to me And I emphasize, it seems to me like there was those kinds of things on there, and other things that were not kosher.
Once you got child pornography on your computer, anyone could accuse you of being a paedophile.
Yes, absolutely. It's a way of getting leverage on people to get them to do what you want. But that's not an uncommon thing.
So what do you think happened to Gary?
Well, as I was researching this, I had talked to credible sources that had indicated that that night he'd been driving back from New Mexico. Somebody was concerned enough to stop him, to find out what he was writing about, and then to find out who knew about it, if anybody. So I think you have to determine what you will from that knowledge.
So why are you freaking out? What's wrong?
There's something I haven't told you.
What do you mean?
I know what Gary knew. The dictator of Panama, Manuel Noriega, made secret recordings in wired rooms of senior US officials having sex with underage prostitutes, male and female.
One British newspaper commented on this, and the story was then buried. And the guy who wrote it got shot by an anonymous sniper.
No one else picked up the story. I think I'm the only person who ever even has seen that newspaper article. I got it from the British Library.
If Gary planned to reveal a paedophile ring in the US government, then that might have been a reason for someone to bump him off and make it look like he died in an accident. But there was a problem. To be able to prove an assassination, you've got to be 100% sure that that person is actually dead. And Matt wasn't sure. Because every single person we met had evidence that supported a completely different theory.
During the time that he disappeared, we had so much search and rescue, so many private eyes, and so many volunteers, as well as foot patrols and choppers. No one reported a large white vehicle traveling in the wrong direction. It just didn't make any sense.
Wendy told us about how big the search was. What can you remember about it?
I immediately went up to the house, and there was a lot of people there, a lot of activity, and we started calling every jail, every hospital, along the route that we knew he was last on. and we would ask, do you have a John Doe with an odd right pinky finger? Because he never fixed his finger that he broke. That's how we would have them identify him.
The remains are wearing clothing that is consistent with what we knew Mr. DeVore to be wearing on the day that he disappeared.
Why were his hands cut off?
Listen, the man had his fingers removed. Why? Why?
He had the deformed pinky finger, right? It's about the most obvious identifying mark that anyone can have. But when the body was discovered, no hands at all. Also, they said that the teeth matched Gary's bridgework here, but Gary had no bridgework.
Until you go through something like this, having someone that's part of your life disappear and then having the evidence that's come out, it's hard. I'll never forget this as long as I live.
Were you very close to Gary?
I was. Throughout the years, he was very giving. But there was a certain part of him that was a little shut off.
He felt that writers in Hollywood weren't appreciated enough.
He had this immediate high, and I think he really got used to hanging out with the A-listers and being able to follow your passion, which for him was screenwriting. But his best work was never made. And he was really struggling with that.
It sounded more and more like Gary was becoming increasingly frustrated with Hollywood, not being able to write what he wanted, and sometimes not even getting the credit for his work.
Early in his career, he got his name in the credits, but then Hollywood turned to him for quick 1 to 2 week punch-ups on somebody else's script, and he never got the credit for it.
He intended to make this the most hard-hitting script that they would ever see in Hollywood.
If Gary was told to abandon his film, it would have been years of writing and research for nothing. Maybe that was too much for him to take. Maybe he said, "You can take the script, but in exchange, I want you to help me to disappear."
Gary was a very determined man. So if he says, I want to change my life, I want to let it go and start again, reinvent myself, I think he's absolutely capable of it, yeah. Sure.
There's certainly situations where what they will do is change your name, change your location. You have to break all family contacts forever, all your friends that you've ever known, your children, et cetera, et cetera. And that may be an impossible scenario for some people to deal with.
At my daughter's graduation from law school, the day that the graduation took place, a woman who worked in the administration office came up to me at the graduation. She said that there had been a male caller, very insistent, wanted to know whether Brittany Oates was graduating from law school that day. I think he wanted to know if what he had done had caused such havoc that she was not graduating.
Wendy has never been happier than when she was with Gary. A piece of her kind of disappeared with Gary. It's constantly on her mind. And for Wendy, who is such a good person, and she's so in control of everything, that not to have this closure in her life, it haunts her every day.
Matt and Wendy were getting on so well, but there was something kind of bubbling under the surface. The dreaded two words, an answer. And Matt was so far from an answer. And it got to the stage where everything that Matt wanted, proof-wise, lay in the hands of the final interviewee, which was a guy called Michael Sands, Gary's publicist. For whatever reason, Matt completely and utterly believed that Michael Sands would hold the key to everything.
Michael Sands is was the publicist for Gary DeVore. He's the first person I contacted, and it was his testimony that really blew my mind and made me realise that there was a huge mystery to this case. The reason I'm interested in Michael Sands is because people have said that he's involved with the CIA. Now how we get in here, really. Oh, 101, I think. Hey, Michael.
Hey, come on up.
Cheers. Michael Sands, good to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Come on in.
Look what I got for you. I got these packs here. Oh, shit, sorry.
Right, what is it?
Oh, buddy, we need some
Yeah, okay, here, listen, here. I gotta show you some stuff. That's me there.
Oh, brilliant.
That's from 1970. Here I am here. I was all over the world doing stuff. Working government service.
Working for the government whilst being a model?
Yeah, an actor, yeah.
And what were you doing for the government?
Just different stuff. Here. Is that incredible?
Yeah.
It was all a bit odd at Michael's house. He seemed to be really interested in Matt's research, and he wanted to look at everything Matt had accumulated in the folders. All the evidence for Gary being dead or alive. But it was odd the way he spoke.
What we really need is proof.
You know, I could always help people out, you know, in need.
You mean find proof?
And then there was an odd phone call.
What's up? Hello? Hello? Hello?
And the meeting came to quite an abrupt end.
Yeah, that's all right. We're grand.
It's fine.
Look after yourself, all right?
Thanks, Michael.
You got the tripod? Yeah.
Yeah, got it all.
Got your own bag?
Yeah, I got my own bag. Then, as we were leaving, he called Matt back and wanted to talk off camera.
I mean,
Michael told Matt to give him 3 weeks. And the implication was, give him 3 weeks to find proof.
I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for you. I feel I really need to get back home now, and I will still do what I can to try and find you an answer. Your video feed's not working.
Not good?
Don't worry, it's fine. I know it's only been a few days. We're gonna start editing the film soon. I wanted to get an idea of what you might find out.
You have to be careful what you pick and choose. I mean, really. If you choose the wrong stuff, you're screwed. agency, they're tied to him. They really, really are.
I don't think you have to worry. I mean, we're putting it in the film, not you. Anything you could find out would really help.
Believe me, they can make life really miserable for you, for me. They give you that knock at the door.
There's no reason why we can't fight this and win it, sticking together, being careful about it, being smart, and we can get proper justice. Else we're just part of the same system. You must believe that they should fight for the right things, for people that you knew.
I'll help you.
Thank you. Well, I'll leave it there. I don't want to push you too hard. We'll be in touch.
I'll talk to you soon.
We really appreciate that.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks. Sit it down. And that's about as good a commitment as I think we could have got. I didn't want to be too rude. Was I all right? Was I?
Well, you did get a bit crazy.
I just feel that we need to know, and then when we've got the information, then we decide how to act. Right.
So what happened to Michael Sanders?
Okay, so this is the supermarket. So the aisles are like running this way, like that. The deli counter is here. Michael Sanders comes in here. This is like the entrance. He goes up to the deli counter, eats some meat, chokes, collapses, dies. Don't know exactly what happened because there's no CCTV camera around in the store at that point.
Sorry, what was the CCTV camera?
There wasn't coverage of the entire store by the CCTV. I called the supermarket about it. Just happened.
Okay, one more time.
Hey?
Can we do that one more time and you be slightly more into it?
No.
I just don't believe you wouldn't think it was suspicious.
Can we get some pizza? Do you want anything?
No, thanks. It's another suspicious thing to add to the list of suspicious things that's happened.
But having all
this should spur you on.
All the suspicious things in the world can be added up, and it can still not mean anything.
Yeah, well, I just don't believe you would have said that 3 months ago, or a year ago, or 2 years ago. Why didn't you say that when he opened the book on Gary DeVore? Do you know something that I don't?
I don't know anything, no. I don't know anything that you don't. And if I did know anything that I thought was important, I would tell you about it. Or if I'd spoken to anyone that was important, I would say something. But there's nothing that I can say to you of anyone that I've done anything with that is anything relevant to this production. Oh, biscuits for tea, is it?
Yeah. Biscuits are for tea.
Yeah.
Why are you wearing a clown outfit?
Oh, because I like to do the interview like this.
What have you been doing since I last saw you?
Well, I've just been living a normal life, really. Just enjoying my life.
And has anything happened with the case?
Well, I do have a clear statement about the case, which is why I wanted to go on camera for this last time, which is to say that Gary DeVore did not die in a car accident in 1997. He was not the victim of a car accident.
How do you know this?
And that really is all I have to say, and all I will ever say publicly about this investigation or about this case.
How do you know this?
It's become very clear.
Why are you dressed up as a clown?
Well, look, let me put it like this. I want people to consider the possibility that this film that we have made is just a piece of entertainment. The reason I asked you to come back here today is that I want to destroy my credibility in this film, on this project, and about anything to do with Gary DeVore.